If I had to reduce everything I know about wealth to one rule, just one, it would make most people uncomfortable. They don't like it because it robs them of excuses, illusions, and urgency theater. The rule is simple but brutal. Wealth comes from letting a small number of good decisions compound for a very long time without interruption. Almost everyone learns this too late, after they've already sabotaged the only asset that truly mattered. Time. People think the tragedy of life is dying poor. That's not the real tragedy. The real tragedy is living in a way that guarantees you never benefit from compounding, then discovering the math when there's no runway left. I've seen it again and again. Smart people, hard-working people, educated people, all baffled at the end, asking where the money went. The answer is always the same. They violated the wealth rule early, repeatedly, and confidently. The first thing people misunderstand is that wealth is not created by intensity. It's created by consistency. Intensity makes for good stories and terrible outcomes. Consistency is boring, which is why almost no one practices it. The market doesn't care how hard you worked this year. It cares how long you stayed alive financially and how little you interfered with sensible decisions. Every unnecessary interruption resets compounding. Every emotional reaction taxes it. Every ego-driven move poisons it. Most people start their adult lives with one enormous advantage: they never recognize optionality. They can choose careers, savings rates, partners, locations, habits. Then they spend the next 20 years trading that optionality for comfort, status, or entertainment. By the time they understand the trade they made, the option has expired. Time is not forgiving. It does not negotiate. It simply moves on without you. The wealth rule demands early restraint. That's the part nobody wants to hear. Early in life, the rewards for discipline are invisible. You save money, nothing happens. You invest sensibly, nothing happens. You avoid stupidity, no one applauds. Meanwhile, the people around you appear to be winning. They spend freely. They speculate. They chase fads. They look successful. This creates psychological pressure that destroys more wealth than any bear market ever could. What people fail to grasp is that compounding has a non-linear curve. For a long time, it looks broken. Then it becomes absurd. The first 10 or 20 years are an exercise in faith, not because the math is uncertain, but because human psychology is weak. We are not wired to wait decades for a payoff. We are wired to seek validation now. The market exploits this mercilessly. I learned early that avoiding big mistakes mattered more than making brilliant moves. If you avoid ruin, time will do the rest. If you don't, no amount of cleverness will save you. The wealth rule is unforgiving on this point. One catastrophic decision can erase decades of discipline. Leverage you don't understand. Businesses you don't comprehend. Partners you shouldn't trust. Marriages that implode your finances. These are not minor setbacks. They are compounding killers. People love to ask about returns. They obsess over percentages. That's amateur thinking. What matters far more is the duration of the compounding and the absence of fatal interruptions. A mediocre return sustained for 50 years beats a brilliant return sustained for 10. Yet most people design their lives for short bursts of excitement rather than long stretches of survivability. The cruel irony is that the wealth rule becomes obvious only after it's too late to fully exploit. In your 20s and 30s, time feels abundant and money feels scarce. In your 60s and 70s, money may be abundant, but time is gone. The rule demands you act against your instincts early so that your instincts can be indulged later. Almost no one does this willingly. Another part of the rule that people resist is simplicity. Complexity is seductive. It makes people feel intelligent. But complexity increases error rates. Errors compound just as powerfully as successes. The richest people I know did fewer things, not more. They said no constantly. They ignored most opportunities. They concentrated their efforts where they had durable advantage. They were not diversified thinkers in the popular sense. They were focused thinkers. The wealth rule also punishes impatience disguised as ambition, career hopping without skill accumulation, business ventures launched without understanding economics, investments made without understanding incentives. These are not bold moves. They are admissions of ignorance. The market is merciless toward people who confuse motion with progress. I've watched people earn extraordinary incomes and end up poor because they never learned to leave money alone. Every surplus dollar burned a hole in their pocket. They upgraded lifestyles instead of balance sheets. They bought depreciating symbols of success instead of appreciating assets. They mistook consumption for reward rather than the enemy of freedom. The wealth rule is clear: consumption ends compounding. Ownership enables it. The rule also exposes the lie that you can fix financial mistakes later. You can't. You can work harder. You can get lucky. But you cannot recreate lost time. Compounding is asymmetric. Early dollars are worth exponentially more than later ones. This is why small, boring decisions made early matter more than dramatic decisions made late. People learn this intellectually, but fail to internalize it emotionally. I didn't become wealthy because I was smarter than everyone else. I became wealthy because I understood my own limitations and structured my life to minimize self-sabotage. I avoided environments that encouraged envy. I partnered with people who corrected me. I invested in businesses that didn't require constant genius. I lived in a way that reduced pressure to act foolish. This is not glamorous advice. It is effective advice. The wealth rule also applies outside money. Health, relationships, reputation all compound the same way. Neglect them early and you pay ruinous interest later. Maintain them consistently, and the returns look miraculous from the outside. People marvel at outcomes without noticing the decades of quiet maintenance that produced them. What finally breaks people is comparison. Watching others get rich faster makes them abandon the rule. They chase returns. They speculate. They lever. They gamble. They win sometimes, which is the worst possible outcome because it reinforces bad behavior. Then eventually, the math reasserts itself, and the losses are permanent. Compounding does not forgive arrogance. If you're young, the wealth rule should terrify you and comfort you at the same time. Terrify you because mistakes matter enormously. Comfort you because you don't need brilliance, luck, or extreme effort. You need patience, humility, and consistency. You need to survive. That's it. Survival plus time equals wealth. If you're older, the rule should sober you, not depress you. You may not reach the absurd end of the curve, but you can still avoid further self-inflicted damage. You can simplify. You can stop chasing. You can preserve what you have. Compounding works at every scale, just less dramatically when time is short. Most people want a formula. There isn't one. The wealth rule is not a trick. It's a discipline. It demands that you act rationally while rewards are invisible and resist temptation while others seem to be winning. That's why 99% of people learn it too late or never at all. The market doesn't reward intelligence. It rewards behavior. It rewards people who understand that the real game is not beating others, but not defeating yourself. If you can grasp that early and live accordingly, the results will look extraordinary to those who didn't, and they'll call it luck. It isn't luck. It's time uninterrupted,